Metalheads, welcome back. Today on Rock Resurgence Radio, we thrash through Metallica's entire discography, ranking every album from classics to hidden gems. Get ready for riffs, vocals, and breakdowns galore. Let's go. Hello and welcome to Rock Resurgence Radio. My name is Chad and this is my good friend Bergie.
Hello.
Today we're going to do favorite albums and I'm going to rank them. Our favorite band, and I'm going to rank albums, their studio albums. My particular band has more than just the said studio albums. They have several other albums that are out there, but I'm just going to leave those off to the side. I might touch on them here and there. But for the most part, I'm just going to do the studio albums that were what are considered studio albums. And that band is Metallica. So Metallica has been my favorite since the very first time I heard them. It was something me and my buddies got into, and it was completely different than anything I had ever heard before. So much so that we didn't really know what to think. We heard it and we're like, whoa, what was that? Because it was so different than the hair metal, the Rats, the Motley Crues, the just that kind of stuff. This was so much heavier and so much more mind blowing that we didn't know what to think. I'll tell you how I got my first album or first cassette, and it was kind of an accident. Well, not really an accident. So I was younger than the people that I hung around with, and they were able to go to the bigger town and pick up stuff. And I was kind of the younger guy that would go over to their place and say, hey, did you pick up anything new today? And they would say, yeah, check this out or whatever, And in order for me to get something new, a lot of times I'd have to trade something I already had. If they didn't like something that they picked up, they would trade it to me. Well, my friend Troy had this album, and this is back in the day when you could go into the record store and you could go up to the clerk and say, hey, what's new in heavy metal today? And they'd go, hey, you should check this out. Well, that's what this is what Troy did. He goes into Budget Music and Video. He goes in and he says, hey, what's new in heavy metal? And they said, well, this came out. It's getting a lot of buzz. You should check it out. He picked up Metallica Kill 'Em All that day. He drove home, listened to it all the way home, and absolutely hated it. Troy is a good friend of mine, but he likes the hair metal. Doesn't get much heavier than that, doesn't get much lighter than that, although he's a big Neil Diamond fan. But anyways, I had gone over to Troy's, and it just so happened he picked that up, and I said, get anything new? And he told me, yeah, I picked this up. I go, I hadn't even heard it yet. I was just starved for something new. So I said, well, what do you think of it? Not really for me, he said. I said, well, I'll trade you something for it. And honestly, I wish I could remember what I traded him, because it was the best trade in history. Doesn't matter what it was. It was the best trade ever. So I traded this to him, and me and my friends, I did have a license, and I did have a stereo in my car. And I picked up my best friend, his name is Jamie, and we threw this in, and we were just like, our jaws hit the ground and went, holy crap, what is this? So another little thing that I remember about this album is we were trying to form a band. Jamie was a drummer. I just started getting into guitar. And, as that goes, we're trying to figure out, I'm trying to come up with some different little riffs on my guitar and this and that. And we're listening to this Metallica album, and they use like 4 different riffs in every song. And I'm just like, this pisses me off. How the hell can they do this? I mean, they would start off one way, then they'd switch to a different riff, and then the chorus would be a different riff, and then there'd be another riff. And then I'm like, I can't even think of one. And these guys are just wasting riffs like they're going out of style. It kind of pissed me off, to be honest, back in the day. But that was amazing to me. We listened to the crap out of this, and then there was a group of 3 of us, me, Jamie, and Carl, and we did a lot of booze cruising and listening to music, and this was our holy grail. It was just, nobody else in town had it. It was just amazing. And it wasn't that amazing to other people, because we would play it out at the party and nobody wanted to hear it. But there's kind of a badge of honor that goes with that too. Yeah. What are you, a bunch of wimps? You can't take it? Anyways, so that was my introduction into Metallica and how I got into them. And they have been my favorite ever since. And that had to be, I know the album came out in 1983.
But you had your driver's license.
I had my driver's license.
So you...
No, I don't think I had my driver's license at this time. This might have been 1984 or 85 when he picked it up. Because I think Ride the Lightning was already out. But I didn't know about it because this band was that new, and we're from a small community. We're from North Dakota, so stuff doesn't matriculate over this direction for a while. We're about a year behind everybody, unless you're really in the know.
Yeah.
So I know I had my license when I got it, and I think I got my license in 84, 85-ish. We just turned 14. So it was May of, would that be 85?
Yeah.
85, yep. So it must have been in that year that that came out. That came out, that I
first were introduced to it.
Yeah, because I did have my license, and we did go cruise around and listen to it, and it was insane. Anywho, of course that led to, is there more albums, and is there more, and it did. We did end up finding out that there was another one called Ride the Lightning. Master of Puppets hadn't come out yet.
So let's, can I interrupt?
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's talk about some of the songs on Kill 'Em All then, since we're going to go through each and every Metallica album, just, briefly.
Yeah.
And then you're going to rank them, and then I'm going to chime in on my rankings.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it starts off with Hit the Lights.
Hit the Lights. Just an awesome song.
In your face, bang,
in your face,
right away.
Boom, holy cow. What is that? I mean, it kind of crescendos up with these drums and guitars, and it just, all of a sudden, it just blasts you, and it's great. And if you've ever been to a Metallica show, I've seen them 4 times, and I think they only opened with that song 1 time, and I was just like, why don't you open with that every single time?
Yeah.
I mean, that is the song to open a goddamn concert up if I've ever heard one. I mean, just unbelievable, in your face, straight hard up metal.
Going back to something you'd mentioned earlier about there was kind of a pride in like discovering this
Absolutely.
Before anybody else, and obviously it was 1985.
Yep.
Kind of deduced, and this had been out
Yep.
for a couple of years or ish. But you and your little small town, we both came from small towns.
Yep, small towns in North Dakota.
My town had 300 people. It probably has 200 people now, maybe. No school in my town.
Yeah, not anymore.
No.
My town was about 600 people, and it's kind of still around that number. Still have high school, but we have co-opt with other schools, as most of these small farm communities do nowadays. But yeah, to those small communities that don't live in the big town where you can just run to your local record store and pick up and see new things out when they come out.
And going back to those times, you had, other than the radio, and you maybe had, like, if you were like me, I had maybe 2 or 3 channels of TV.
Exactly.
Like, where are you going to get this stuff at? Where are you going to hear it? How did it come about?
Exactly.
His story with your guy going down, a little older than you, picking it up, didn't like it. You traded the best trade of all time, and you got it.
Absolutely.
And that's how you get introduced to Metallica.
Yeah, and that's that's how I got introduced to a lot of things. In our previous episode, I discussed my neighbor who got me into it with the Motley Crue "Shout at the Devil" album. He didn't trade me because he loved that, but I did give him some money. So the next time he went, he picked it up for me. So these are the kind of things you had to do when you come from a small town. Is you have the older person that is going to the big town. Hey, can you pick that up for me? And they would. And it's hard. It's people who listen to music today and how easily accessible it is to virtually anybody. I mean, anything and everything you want to listen to is at the tip of your finger.
It wasn't like that.
It was not like that. Which is why.
Well, you mentioned budget music and video.
Yeah.
You walked into this store.
Absolutely.
And you could talk to the guy behind the counter, and he would play it. So you knew what you were getting into. That's the way Metallica, Kill 'Em All was not going to be on the radio.
No.
You didn't hear it on K-Hit 97 or KIZZ. You had to discover it some way.
Absolutely. Yeah, that was not going to go on to the radio. Matter of fact, Metallica wasn't on the radio probably till the Black Album. Or maybe in some radio stations out west and, the big cities, Los Angeles, stuff like that, might have picked up on their stuff and played it on their obscure hard rock channels. But, in North Dakota, no chance.
And this is probably, I think MTV was probably out, but MTV wasn't playing Metallica Kill 'Em All.
Well, they didn't do any videos until one.
Yeah, and that
was the very first video they ever did.
Where I got into it, and we'll get into that later. But
yeah, so kind of back to this, and then you go on to Four Horsemen, and I mean, all of them are pretty much shredders. But the real shredders, the ones that are really fast and really thrashy, are probably Whiplash. Motor Breath is pretty fast. Metal Militia is really fast. But the ones that caught me were the Four Horsemen, Jump in the Fire. Seek and Destroy is probably one of my all-time favorite Metallica songs, and I don't know if it's partially because I learned how to play it on guitar.
And that's one of the more melodic songs on there too.
Exactly.
Easier to listen to or catchier maybe.
Yeah, and I think another reason why Metallica is my favorite and why I've loved them and for so long is, I do play guitar. I'm not great by no means, but a lot of their stuff is guitar driven. So, it holds a spot in my heart. I hear it and I'm just like, oh my God, to this day, I still think James Hetfield is one of the best rhythm guitar players ever to walk this planet. I mean, he's unreal. And he comes up with most of the music, and him and Lars kind of do most of the work in the band as far as it goes, as far as songwriting and goes. But yeah, that album, just a ripper.
You caught me off guard with your buddy that was the Neil Diamond fan too. That like James Hetfield vocals are about as far away from Neil Diamond as you can get. So yeah, touching on the songs again really quick too is so my two favorites are Seek and Destroy would be up there, and Jump in the Fire are probably my two favorites off that.
Yep. Those are off that album. I would say those are my two favorites, and then Four Horsemen would be right there also. I mean, I like them all. I don't skip any of them when I listen to the album. They did come out. The original that I had, it was on cassette. It had 10 songs on it. The later release came with 2 extra songs, both one by Diamond Head and one by a band called Blitzkrieg.
Yes, I remember having this version of it.
Yep, they came out with a different version. And like I said in the previous episode, I gave away all my discs. I still have a cassette tape, about 30, 40 of them, but I wish I still had this original with just the 10 songs because it's really hard to find. But they came out with a song by Diamond Head called Am I Evil, which is really a good tune. If you've seen them play it live, it's really, or when they played with the Big Four. They're part of the Big Four, which is Metallica, Megadeth, Anthrax, and Slayer. I think they should make it a Big Five and put Pantera in there. That's just my opinion. But anyways, that song is just a really cool riff, and then the other song, Blitzkrieg by the band Blitzkrieg, is a real toe tapper. It's fast, it's catchy, and if it was on the actual first album with 10, that would be probably my third favorite behind Seek and Destroy and Jump in the Fire. I think it would be Blitzkrieg and then the Four Horsemen. So very good album. And then they jumped out with, I went back, I found Ride the Lightning, which is another, there's I read a lot of articles, and a lot of people think this is the quintessential thrash album. And, I don't know who you talk to, the whole genre of thrash, heavy metal, hair band, blah, 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 deathcore, grindcore, blah, whatever it is. There's so many different labels for music. I just like to call it music.
Yeah, and this...
or hard rock. I just call it hard rock is what I do. But this album came out in 84, and I got it probably later in 85 after I had got this Kill 'Em All. What were you going to say, Chris?
Oh, I was just going to say that this, to me, Metallica, I mean, the first 5 letters of the name are metal.
Yeah.
And that separated, like, there was hard rock, or I don't think we called them hair bands back then, but it was hard rock. And then there was metal, and this was metal to me, Metallica.
Yeah. And yeah, good catch on the whole name. You know what? Of all the years I've listened to their stuff, I don't know how the Itka came about. I don't know how they came up with that. I don't remember ever hearing a story about that. Do you know?
I did. I don't have it at my, but I think it was this looked cool on a t-shirt.
Okay. Makes sense. Did you know that the first album, Kill 'Em All, was actually supposed to be called Metal Up Your Ass?
Yeah.
Yeah, and they
have a t-shirt that has the toilet with the guitar,
or with something coming off
it,
right? Yeah,
yeah, it's a guitar.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? The neck. Yeah.
Yep. So yeah, the ones who make the big decisions didn't like that, so they had to change it. And anyways, let's get back into Ride the Lightning. So that one starts out with another banger. It starts off all cute with a little bit of acoustic, and then it just jumps into it, balls to the wall, fight fire with fire. It's a crazy, great song. Then it goes into Ride the Lightning, the album title. That's a really good song too. And then the next 2 songs are my absolute, these are probably 2 songs that are in my top 5 all-time Metallica songs. With For Whom the Bell Tolls and Fade to Black. And Fade to Black, it's a little slower, and then it kicks in, and then it gets slower, and it kicks in, and it's just so well written that I honestly think that is my favorite Metallica song.
You almost think it's a ballad.
You almost think it's a ballad. It is.
But it just goes all over the place.
It does. And there's some really cool guitar work in there. And I think it's honestly, if it's not my favorite, it's probably number 2. And For Whom the Bell Tolls just is a jam. It's a jam. It's a short song. The guitar and the drums are really cool. Lars has some really cool fills in this song that just make it boom. Trapped Under Ice is good. Escape is good. Creeping Death is probably the song that a lot of the die-hard Metallica fans think is the best Metallica song. You'll hear that a lot, and they always play it live. And that's kind of weird to me, because like they don't always play Seek and Destroy. Because I saw them one time and they didn't play Seek and Destroy, and I about lost my mind.
And they play along, like a lot of their shows are long, I saw one that was 3 hours long.
They're 2 hours plus, yeah.
Yeah, so, but they have a lot, and
they do.
We're getting into it for sure.
You know, and then they got Call of the Cthulhu, which is the first instrumental that they did. They didn't, or did they do one on the first one? Yeah, they did. They did Anesthesia Pulling Teeth with some bass solo. But this is the first, the first kind of real instrumental where, and they became known for it. They
long songs.
Yeah, their songs are, you know. Oh, speaking of that, it's kind of funny. In school, in my physics class, my teacher's name was Dave, and he was a country music fan. And he put a bonus question on one of the tests, and it said you had to get the closest person got whatever, blah, 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 so many points or whatever. And it was, what is the longest country song? Or how long is the longest country song? I don't know. I put 5.5 minutes. Or 6 minutes or something like that. And when he was reading, or when he was going over the test, and then he was going over the bonus question, and he says, like the longest at that time, you know, back in the mid 80s, he said the longest country song was like 3 minutes and 22 seconds or somewhere in there. It was in the 3 minute range. And I said, what? I said, Metallica songs are 6 to 10 minutes. He goes, that's because they're on acid and they can't stop. I still remember that to this day. I had to laugh. That was a great comeback. But yeah, I mean, that's true about Metallica. That, well, not about the acid. I don't know anything about that. But their songs are typically, you know, anywhere from 4 to 10, you know.
And longer.
Yeah.
On coming up albums, they push 13, 14 minutes even, I think. But we'll see.
Yep. And then, let's see.
So, are we moving on to the next one?
Go ahead. If you have.
Well, I was just going to say, what's your favorite song on Ride the Lightning then? Fade to Black?
Fade to Black.
Okay.
Yep. And then followed by From the Bell Tolls. Okay.
I thought we would have some differences of opinion, but I would say those are exactly the two I would pick too.
Yep.
And oddly, I like Escape a lot. But
yep, that is a good one.
Fade to Black and For Whom the Bell Tolls, 1 and 2 sometimes change in my head.
Yep.
So.
And then we're going to move on to, which would be
the classic.
This, and I'm going to rank these here after we go through them.
This is going to be a lot of people's number ones, probably.
This is it's kind of tied for number one for me.
We'll get to that.
Yeah, we'll get to that. But this is just a masterpiece. There is not a song that I don't like. And there, you know, on most of the albums, there's really not a song that I dislike. There's not a skipper. There's not a filler, you know, until we get into the later albums where we'll get into that when we get to those. Mm-hmm. They just went in a different direction and whatever. But this is still in the thrash metal. You know, Battery is just awesome. Really, really, really good.
So you picked up, or you had Kill 'Em All,
yep.
And then you found Ride the Lightning before this came out. So when this came out, you bought it day one, or
not day one. I can't remember how long it took me to get it, but it wasn't day one.
Because I still at this point have not got into Metallica.
Yep. No, I hadn't. I didn't have probably not the funds or something, but I didn't get it right away. But I got it as soon as I possibly could.
It wasn't easy to get.
No. Well, yeah, it wasn't easy living in a small town for a small town, the drive and whatever. But anyways, this starts out with Battery, and one thing I'm going to say about Battery, and it's kind of, if you've seen Some Kind of Monster, their film they did later on down the road, this is the song that Robert Trujillo came in, and that's the song he wanted to play for his audition, which is pretty. And even the band goes, really? You know, because it's a pretty intense song, you know, not something that is not Master of Puppets, you know, which would probably be, or whatever, you know. This is after the Black album too, so it wasn't anything off the Black album, but he wanted to play this, so I thought that was pretty cool. So that's why I'm like, yeah, Trujillo was pretty cool. Anyways, and then it goes into Master of Puppets, which is, that is probably my favorite Metallica song. That is probably the number one.
You're going to change a few times before we get to the end.
I think about it, but no, you know, it's between that and Fade to Black, and I just think this is a better song. It's like a composition. It's like a orchestra piece.
Keep saying this, but it definitely goes all over the place.
Yeah,
it's a ride.
Ebbs and flows.
Yeah.
You know, it's like a roller coaster ride. You know, you're just jamming, and then all of a sudden it kicks into this just kind of pretty stuff, and it's like, right. What the heck is this? Yeah. You know, and you just don't know what to think. But Master of Puppets is probably my all-time favorite, and this is also another thing about this album. This is the last album that Cliff Burton played on. He died in a bus accident on this tour, so it kind of holds a special spot in your heart, because Cliff, I mean, if you listen to the bass stuff in the first three albums, it's like kind of insane. Or if you listen to Anesthesia, Pulling Teeth, his bass tone and the stuff he was doing, he was doing a bass like he was doing like a lead guitar. I mean, he was just fantastic.
Yeah, and that Anesthesia song, the first time you hear it, and you were probably 12 or 13 years old, and you're like, what? How is this noise
coming out of it?
Right.
You know, and at the time, I'll be honest with you, when I first started, I didn't think it was a bass.
Yeah.
I did not know. I thought it was a guitar. I just thought it was a weird sounding guitar. And, you know, after time, I learned that. I was like, holy crap, that brings a whole new meaning to this. And, you know, he is just and if you read any articles and you talk or talk to people who know music, they'll say he's one of the better bass players that was around, and it was a tragic loss. Moves into a song called The Thing That Should Not Be, which is a little different feel, but it's groovy, it's cool, I like it. Welcome Home Sanitarium, really, really, really good song. I would say 8, 9 out of 10. Disposable Heroes, another thrasher. The words to that, you know, it's about military, and it's really, you'd have to listen to it and listen to the words. That there's some lines in there that just make you think and make you wonder. You know, I mean, it's a really cool song.
Political statement of sorts, maybe.
Yeah, it is, and and this is way back in '86. Mm-hmm. You know, so to be political and about a military thing is kind of weird back then. Then it goes into Leopard Messiah, which is a weird kind of riff.
Got a crunching.
It's just it's just kind of a weird. I don't know how to explain it. It's a different type of riff and beat. It just sounds different, but it's a really cool song. And then we get into Orion.
Another instrumental.
This is my favorite instrumental by Metallica, by far. I love it. The guitar work, everything about it, I like. Really good. And then you get to an all-out banger, Damage Incorporated, ends the album, and it is balls to the wall.
So I want to say your two favorite songs. I want to say, what are your the two songs, if you could only listen to two songs, what would they be? But let's go two favorites, because I think my two favorites would be different if I could only listen to these two songs.
My two favorites are obviously Master of Puppets, which I said was probably my all-time favorite Metallica song, and then Welcome Home Sanitarium. Those are my two favorites.
So we finally have some differing opinions now.
Yep.
But Welcome Home Sanitarium is one of my two favorites as well.
Yep.
And then I really like Leper Messiah.
I know, it's a weird, catchy song. It's different. But
if I could only have two to keep, and it would probably be the first two, Battery and Master of Puppets.
Yeah. Well, you'd want to keep Master of Puppets because it's over 8 minutes long.
Good point.
Keeps you busy for a little bit.
Moving on to the next album.
Moving on to the next album is Injustice for All. And this is the first one with Jason Newsted on bass. Although they did come out with a little, was it a 5-song EP? I can't remember.
Yeah,
it was a 598 EP. So
5 songs on it.
You went to the store. They couldn't charge you over
four songs on it.
Yeah, they couldn't charge you over $5.98 for this album, and it was just cover songs.
The fourth song was actually 2 songs, or the fourth track was 2. So that's where I think Last Caress and Green Hell.
Green Hell, yep. But anyway, so they did have a little small album in there. I think it was just kind of a feeler to feel out Jason Newsted as the bassist and how it would sound and how it would work.
But we're just concentrating on the 11 releases, whatever.
So, Injustice for All is really, really good. Matter of fact, at this point, I did have my license. I know for sure because the day it came out, a friend of mine and I drove to the big town and we both picked it up. And we listened to it until our ears bled. I mean, we listened to it probably for a couple of days straight. It was, I think the albums came out on a Friday for some reason. And we ended up going to a girls' basketball game that night. And then, obviously we weren't listening to it while we were in the game, but as soon as we got out, we were jamming it again and whatever. And of course, we may have had a little bit of beer with us to help us open our earwaves.
Is that how it worked?
Yeah. Everything sounds better when you're drinking. Anyways, that's what I thought. Anyways.
That's a whole nother episode. Right
that's a whole nother episode. Yeah, I forgot more than I've remembered, I guarantee you. This album is really, really good too. I mean, this is the only thing it sounds good, but and they go into this on their movie that they had. The guitars and the drums are really, really loud, so you really can't hear the bass.
And it's funny, I've heard this, and I watched Is That the Some Kind of Monster?
Yeah. They talked about it.
Yeah. I didn't feel that way at the time.
Well,
but this is my introduction to Metallica. This is where I first got into them. And like Chad went back and, Chad actually went in sequential order from 1 to 4 here. I went from 4 to 2 to 3, or 4 to 3, 2, 1 probably.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I went back and got the rest and caught up. I had to catch up.
Yeah. A lot of people did that. Matter of fact, a lot of people really got into them, and the Black Album was where they really kind of struck it. But we'll discuss that. Anyways, this album is, and I didn't really think of it like you said. I didn't really think of it at the time, but after hearing them say that, you can't really hear the bass, and the guitars are really loud, and the drums are really loud, and it's because I think at the time, James and Lars were kind of battling a little bit who's more important than the band. And okay, if you're going to turn your drums up, I'm going to turn my guitar up. If I'm going to turn my guitar up, you're going to turn my drums up. And it's kind of one of those things. But it ended up being a fantastic album, and we'll just kind of go into it. Blackened, really, really, really strong opener. Injustice for All. Blackened, I'd probably go 9 out of 10. Injustice for All, I would probably go 8. Eye of the Beholder has a really cool riff. I would give that probably a 9. One on that album is a 10 for sure. Shortest Straw, I would give a 10. Harvester of Sorrow, I'd probably be at a 9. Frayed Ends of Sanity, I'd probably be an 8 or maybe even a 7. I mean, it's good, but To Live or To Die.
To Live is to Die.
To Live is to Die. I'm trying to think of how that one goes.
I gotta say something here, because when I pulled up I'm looking at the track listing on the computer and the time, the length. The album is 9 songs. It's 65 minutes long. It's huge.
Yeah.
It's massive. But I had said something earlier about 12, 13, 14-minute songs. Longest song on here is To Live is to Die. It's 9 minutes and 49 seconds.
Yeah.
So I, in my head, was thinking that's a 12-minute song. And maybe live it is, or maybe maybe there are some 12-minute songs. I hope so, because I said that. But anyway.
Well, I just noticed something on there. Cliff Burton is credited on To Live is to Die.
Yep.
So that's kind of cool. I'm going to have to give that another listen, because that song isn't sticking out real big in my head, so I can't really give it a ranking. And Dyer's Eve, for some reason, isn't sticking out in my head either, for some reason.
Yeah, I can hear To Live is to Die, but
I can't hear those two songs for some reason.
This is where we would play them over the video, but we can't yet.
Yeah, we can't do that yet until we get to more subscribers, so keep that in mind, guys.
We got to do some licensing on things like that. So
anyways, 2 favorite songs on this one, I would say Blackened.
I think we're going to have a common one here again, but maybe not.
This is a tough one for me, because I really do like one, but it was their first video that they made, and it became really popular, and it was getting player play, and before that, nothing from Metallica was on the radio, and then they were starting to get popular, which made me go, that song sucks, because it's kind of whatever, and I don't know how to explain it other than, you wanted to be that hard edge guy where the stuff I listen to isn't on the radio.
Yeah, going back to the
it.
Cool factor of discovering it.
Right.
I had to back my way. It wasn't cool. I didn't discover it till here.
Yeah. But in all fairness, one is a fantastic song.
So you're going with Blackened and one?
Yeah, I have
2 favorite?
Yep.
I'm going to have to go with one as well. I wasn't going to.
You know what your second one's going to be, I think?
I don't think you do. But I'm going to go with Shortest Straw.
Yep, that's what I was thinking, yep.
And I almost wanted to say
my third.
Harvester of Sorrow and Shortest Straw.
They're pretty close.
But on the cassette, you flip it over and it starts with the Shortest Straw, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
One finishes the front side.
Correct.
So the first 3 songs on that back side, and then To Live is to Die and Dyer's Eve, I think it doesn't say they're instrumentals. I think there's very few vocals in both of those songs, though.
Yeah, like I said, I can't.
I'm going to be listening to that tonight.
I know. I'm kind of ashamed
I can
of
hear
myself.
To Live is to Die in my head, but
I'm kind of a little ashamed of myself because I can't hear them properly.
So, moving on.
Moving on. Okay, now.
We're not even halfway through their catalog yet.
Yeah, it's a go quick, though. I'm moving along, trying to move her along a little. There's a couple albums that I'm just going to kind of skip over because I don't really, whatever. The next album is Metallica, self-titled album, otherwise known as the Black Album. This is where the fit hit the shan.
Yeah, they got mainstream.
Got huge mainstream play out of this. They hooked up with producer Bob Rock, and they knocked it out of the park. A lot of people say they sold out and whatever, and I like to quote Jason Newsted, yeah, we sold out. We sold out every show we played, and that is the truth. And I mean, even to this day, they sell out every time they play. So whether you like it or you don't, this is the album that it's unreal. Let me see. I think I have it. How many albums this sold? Approximately 31.8 million copies sold worldwide. The next closest is Master of Puppets at 10.6. So this thing is just a monster. Put that into comparison of 72 Seasons, their newest album that just came out in 2023. It's only sold 324,000. That's pretty much a flop in Metallica world. But if you look at their streams, which is how everybody's listening to music, they got 15.91 million streams on 72 Seasons also. So, I mean, the numbers look different because people don't really buy physical copies anymore.
I miss that. I miss the smell of the...
I do too. I mean,
it's
and
weird,
I gave mine away, and I'm still kicking myself for that. But there was something about grabbing, and there were certain ones that had a certain smell. And I'm thinking of cassettes too. You pull it out and you pull that tape out, and it just had this smell that just...
Yeah, and you pull it open and look at see how if it had lyrics or liner notes that you wanted to see. Or
Absolutely. You wanted to see if you had all the words or more pictures of the band. And, it's just a different way of listening to music nowadays.
Click, and there it is.
Yeah.
But that's handy too.
It is too. It's so nice. You can have a phone and you can have a million songs on your phone, and you'll never have, matter of fact, I got Apple Music and I got so many albums on there that I probably won't, I don't know if I'll listen to them again because I keep going back to the same kind of stuff I normally listen to, but I like them for a while and then I kind of forget about them because they don't have the staying power of the old bands that you had the physical copy of, and you did the research, you knew the band members, you knew their lyrics, you knew who wrote and produced the songs, and it's just a totally different
world. That's what you had to look at.
Right, and that was of interest to us back then. But anyways, let's just go through this album. There's so many killer songs. Enter Sandman, of course, is fantastic. Sad But True is awesome. It's, if you ever see him live, James always says, "You guys want heavy?" And he does that, and then he, as soon as you hear him say that, Sad But True is coming out. So that's an awesome song. Holier Than Thou, great song. Unforgiven, slow song. It was kind of a, one is slow, and then it really ramps up. So this is kind of their first foray in almost a ballady type of thing, but it was really cool. Wherever I May Roam is a freaking solid rocker. Don't Tread on Me is really good. Through the Never is pretty fantastic. Nothing Else Matters. James wrote this as a poem, if I remember right, and Bob Rock got hold of it. And he says, "You got to make this into a song." And they did, and it was one of their bigger hits of all time. But it's, it's just an acoustic poem made into a song. It's really good. Of Wolf and Man, excellent. The God That Failed. There's some, The God That Failed. There's some of these songs start out with this really cool bass line by Jason Newsted that I was really happy to hear, because I don't know if he still to this day doesn't get the credit. He was the fun one to watch in concert. He was banging his head. There's one of his dad, he always used to complain to his dad. Or no, this is Cliff Burton, that we used to bang heads so bad. And his dad would say, "Well, it's because you're banging your head all night." Anyways, My Friend of Misery, and then The Struggle Within. Just 12 songs. They're all really good. If I had to pick two on this album, I think I would do Sad But True. And I think my other one would be Wherever I May Roam. Those would be my two favorites off that. There's tons of good songs. Enter Sandman's a great song, but I've heard it a zillion times.
Right.
So those would be my two. How about you, Chris?
I think my two are going to be Nothing Else Matters and The Unforgiven, which are two of the slower songs on there.
Okay.
But
nothing wrong with that.
But Enter Sandman you first heard that song. I mean, you were
the video was just insane.
coming off of And Justice for All, and that's been my first, like, going back to that just real quick. I saw the video on MTV, for one, and I'm like, my jaw just dropped, hit the floor, like,
especially at the end.
Everything. The visuals of it, and the ending. And then I can remember watching the Grammy Awards, and they just added the new category for metal. Best metal. I think best heavy metal album.
Yeah.
And like, they're for sure. And then Jethro Tull wins.
I know.
And I'm like, the dude has a flute in his songs. Like,
right?
That's not heavy metal. Anyway, they dropped the ball, whatever. But coming off of that, and this being probably the first Metallica album that I got on day one, Enter Sandman was the big hit right away. So that's going to, of course, a special spot for sure.
Okay, Enter Sandman. What was your other one?
Well, my two picks were Nothing Else Matters and The Unforgiven.
Oh, yeah. Two slower ones. But I mean,
good songs all around.
You can't really go wrong with that album. It's, if I were to introduce somebody to Metallica for their first time, that's probably the album I'd show them.
Yeah.
Because it's the most user-friendly and very catchy song. So, it...
Ease them into the harder stuff, maybe.
Yeah, and then kind of go, okay, this, his voice didn't always sound like this. It was a little, he was 17, 18, and it was a little higher pitched and a little more gravelly and a little more screamy. Mm-hmm. And this is what it sounds like. And then Play 'Em, Kill 'Em All, and Ride the Lightning, and just go, that's the real good stuff. Anyways, we're going to move on. Next one is Load. Tracks include Ain't My Bitch. Good song. So I'm just gonna preface this by saying Load and Reload, they kind of went in a different direction musically. It's more blues based, not as thrash based. So they lost a lot of people over this stuff. I still, my saying back then was it's still better than anything else that's on the radio. And that's true. I mean, they might have wrote some okay songs. I mean, there's some really good songs. Until It Sleeps, and I didn't know this. Until It Sleeps is their number one charting on the Hot 100, Billboard Hot 100. It got up to number 10. That's higher than Enter Sandman. It's higher than Nothing Else Matters. Blew my mind. I couldn't believe that. My wife, one of her favorite songs is called King Nothing, and that's on this album. Hero of the Day is really good. Bleeding Me is really good. Then there's some kind of filler stuff, in my opinion, like Cure, Poor Twisted Me, Waste of My Hate. Still not great. Mama Said was a pretty cool, slower song. The Outlaw Torn was a good song. Thorn Within.
And the longest song on the album, I still haven't seen one over 10 minutes, but so I was wrong, probably.
Yeah, no, there's a couple on this new stuff. I think there is one on Hardwired that's over 10.
But still, when you talk about most music is between 3 and 5 minutes long, probably.
Yeah.
For the radio, especially, really 3 minutes is probably the wheelhouse. They played, the songs went on and on.
Any of these ones stand out to you, Chris? Or there's two?
Yeah, I can pick two favorites. What are yours?
I would say Hero of the Day and Bleeding Me are my two favorites on this one.
Well, I'm with you on, actually, I'm with your wife. King Nothing.
Yep. She really
is one of my favorites, and I really like 2x4 too. I don't know.
They're good. I mean, everybody has their opinion. I don't know. For some reason, those two, Hero of the Day and Bleeding Me, really kind of caught me. And I like King Nothing too. I mean, it's a good banger. But those other, the Hero of the Day and the Bleeding Me, came out a little more.
96. So
96.
It was 5 years between albums, right?
Yeah, at this point they're taking longer and longer between albums. I think we're going to do Reload next.
Which was a pretty quick turnaround.
That was a pretty quick turnaround. That was 97. I think it was supposed to be a double album or something like that.
If you know, you know on Load the cover.
Yeah, that's
okay. We don't have to say what it is.
Discover that. It just Load. Just it's self-explanatory.
Yeah, it's
Siemens.
Blood, but yeah, it's a what's the word I'm looking for? A microscope. You put it under a microscope. Plate, glass plates that you put together.
Yeah, it's under a microscope.
And that's where. Yeah. Anyway,
enough about that. Enough about
moving
Seaman.
along.
You know, he was a seaman.
I was, yeah.
Yeah, he was in the Navy. Just throwing that out there. Thank you for your service, by the way.
You're welcome.
Anyways, then
Reload.
We're going through these ones a little quicker. They were good, but they weren't great. They didn't stick with me like the first 5 albums did. Reload. This one has Fuel. The Memory Remains. Those two are, I can just tell you right now, are my 2 favorite songs on this album. Fuel is an awesome way to start an album. I mean, it just is in your face right off the bat. And then The Memory Remains is just a catchy song. Goes on to Devil's Dance. Like I said, I mean, a lot of this stuff to me is kind of filler stuff. I mean, they came out in 96, 97. So, you know, I don't think there was a whole lot of thought that went into these albums because, I mean, it just shows they're just not as good as their previous stuff. Then they get the Unforgiven 2. They start writing sequels to songs. I was kind of, although it's actually a pretty good song, I was kind of going like, really? Can't come out with something different? Then they came out with 3 also. So, Better Than You, decent song. Slither, Carpe Diem Baby was okay. Bad Seed was kind of catchy, kind of had a cool rhythm. Where the Wild Things Are was okay. Prince Charming was okay. Low Man's Lyric, I kind of dug that for some reason. I don't know why. It was a really slow voice, and it was just kind of a neat song. Attitude and Fixer close out the album, and they're okay. I'm not going to get too excited about any of them other than Fuel and The Memory Remains. Those 2 just are really good songs, and that's, if I were making a best of Metallica, that's the only 2 songs I'd take off this album.
Well, I'm with Chad for the most part on my top 2, but I might take Fuel and I might take The Unforgiven 2. The Memory Remains is a great song, but the Marianne Faithfull voice stuff on it towards the end of the song, I
don't even remember that for some reason.
I don't know.
Whatever.
Doesn't do it for me, but it's a really good song. I can't
think of that part of the song. I can hear the hook and I can hear it, and I'm just,
there's some la.
It just stops and
Anyway.
A really good song live. And I'm just looking at the lengths of songs on there. The longest song on there is the last one, Fixer, at 8 minutes and 15 seconds. So they do.
I know Load. They started to shorten them up a little.
Yeah, they kind of did, and you know, like I said, they went into a different direction. You know, musically, you know, it wasn't straight thrash. There was a lot of bluesy stuff in there, which, you know, I'm not gonna. It was just a different sound. You know, I'm still a Metallica fan. They're still my favorite band. I once made a comment that they could probably fart on the mic and package it, and I'd buy it. It's just kind of one of those things.
Don't give any ideas.
Yeah. Well, they probably could. I mean, they're so damn popular. Anyways, the next album we're going to talk about, we're going to go really quick over because I absolutely hate it. And this is Saint Anger. Came out in 2008, I believe. No, what year did it come out here? I gotta look. 2003.
Okay.
And honestly, I don't know what they were thinking on this album. This is around that Some Kind of Monster time where the band nearly broke up. I think, if I remember right, this is the first album where kind of everybody kind of wrote, and it was not a good idea. You know, leave it to Lars and James Hetfield to do the songwriting, because that's what they do and that's what's worked. And I don't know. And I can't be 100% sure on that. I don't know if that's 100% right, but if there was two songs on here that I would pick, oh, it's so hard. I kind of remember liking Invisible Kid and Some Kind of Monster. Those would probably be my two songs.
Well, my two favorite things about this album are Saint Anger. I think it was probably the first like single off of it, so I'm like, okay, it's all right. But then my second favorite thing is the movie, The Some Kind of Monster.
Yeah,
I enjoyed that.
That was a great movie.
But I never really got into it, and I think
the recording was terrible.
I'm fairly lost after this, although the next one we're going to talk about I do have, and I have listened to front to back. But the very last two, their latest two albums, I can't hardly chime in on.
Yeah, the next two I know pretty good. I listened to them a good bit. 72 Seasons, which is their latest one. I haven't delved into that one all that much yet. But from what I've heard, there's some really pretty good standout songs, which we'll discuss here in a little bit. Right now we're on Death Magnetic. And to me,
album cover.
Yeah, and yeah, it's a cool album cover, and it's Metallica again, is the way I put it. They came out with a couple bluesy albums, The Load, The Reload, and then they came out with that crap that they call an album, Saint Anger. That big turd.
Don't hold nothing back.
No, it was so bad. I mean, the guitar sounded terrible.
Tell us how you really feel.
The drums felt like they were playing them on garbage cans. There was nothing I liked about it. Anyways, and this Death Magnetic came out. I'm like, okay, God, I hope this is better. Come on, baby. And it was. It was a lot better. Kind of back to the vein of their earlier stuff. A little more rockin', a little more choppy songs with riffs and stuff. Kind of got back in, but we came out with Unforgiven 3. I mean, it's a really, really good song. It's got 3 versions. Anyways, it starts with That Was Just Your Life. Good song. I like that one. At the end of the line, it's okay. Broken, Beaten, Scarred is a banger. That thing will knock your teeth in. The Day That Never Comes is probably the most user-friendly song on the album, and I really like it. And then followed by All Nightmare Long. Those two are probably, well, golly, there's Cyanide too. I like that one too. Those 3 in a row, The Day That Never Comes, All Nightmare Long, and Cyanide. I like all 3 of those very, very much. But I would take, if I had to choose 2, I'd take The Day That Never Comes and All Nightmare Long.
I'm 100% with you on that one, so we don't even have to go over my 2 favorites. So
Yep. And then there's Unforgiven 3, which is, it's good. You know, all of the Unforgiven songs have been pretty decent. Then there's the Judas Kiss, which is okay. Suicide and Redemption instrumental, it was decent. My Apocalypse, the ending song, it's actually a pretty good tune. But it wouldn't make my top 3 or 4, I think. So that's that for Death Magnetic. Next one is going to be Hardwired to Self-Destruct. And this album, it's cool because the way it starts out, you think, holy crap, this is Metallica from 1987, 84, 85, 86, 87, right in there, because that song just blasts you right in that face. It is just fast and short and to the point. I mean, it's 3-minute song, but it just makes you sit back and go, holy crap, they're back. Atlas Rise is really good. One of my this next song, Now That We're Dead, just has a really catchy riff that I absolutely love. I mean, I think it would honestly be in my top 5 to 7 Metallica songs, because
it's Now That We're Dead.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's so good. It's just a catchy song. Moth into Flame. That is a really cool song. And then there was Lady Gaga got up and sang this on one of the awards shows, and the sound was off. But then you could find the actual version where it showed, and it was a kick-ass deal. I mean, Lady Gaga. That. I mean, I don't care what you think about Lady Gaga, but when she did that, it was pretty damn cool. She just got into it and she sang her ass off, and it was cool. Dream No More, it's okay. Halo on Fire, really dig that song. Confusion, okay. Man Unkind, good. Here Comes Revenge, decent. Am I Savage? I'm trying to think of that one. Every time I read that title, I think of Am I Evil, and that gets stuck in my head, so I'm having a hard time with that one. I'll skip to Spit Out the Bone because that's a really cool ending tune. That's a real banger too. There's a lot of pretty good hard rock stuff on this one, and it kind of got you excited because it was Metallica again. It was the old Metallica again, and they were just putting the balls to the walls and writing good songs. And they're not all great, but I mean, if I probably sat down and listened to it 10 more times, I'd probably find out that I like a couple of the other songs more than I did, the first 10 times I listened to it. And
okay, that's a good point you make there about listening to something 10 times. I think that with any album, you got to listen to it 2 or 3 times before you decide if it's good or not, for sure. I listened to Extreme's newest album, and it took me a few times to get to a point where I'm like, this is really great.
Same way with me and AC/DC, the latest one that they put out. It just, when I heard it, I listened to it like 5 times in a row because I just got hooked by it. And it was great. AC/DC always kind of sounds the same, but this one, the backing vocals were a little more out there, and you could hear them better. And I was just saying, "Oh my God, this is great!"
The first
5 times I listened to it,
yeah.
I haven't listened to it since.
Yeah,
it's just one of those. I don't, and I see it there, but I don't have the urge to listen to it again. Whereas those ones that you have to go back and listen to kind of like, I think those hold on longer and stay longer in your rotation because they took a little bit more work to get through and listen to more, and you just end up listening to them forever. They just become part of that like island music.
So sometimes it can work the opposite way, where you
absolutely
you listen to it right away and you think this is great.
Yep.
And the more you listen to it, you're not quite as impressed. But
yeah, typically the ones that I like right away, first couple listens, they don't stick around as long. The ones that I have to kind of go back and listen to, like a couple of Metallica albums, for example, too. I haven't listened to all of those as much as I probably should have, but I will because they're my band. But like Death Magnetic and Hardwired, I listened to it quite a bit, but not like I overplayed the rest of them. Like there was like the first 4 albums, or 5 albums, I really played the crap out of them and wore them out. And
they've been out much longer too, so you've had more time to consume them.
Yeah, and I always, Apple does a artist of the year, artist that you listen to the most, and Metallica was mine last year. We'll see if it is again this year, but I can't imagine it wouldn't be up in there. So, because I do listen to it a fair amount. Let's move on to the 2023 release. It's called 72 Seasons, and I'll start off by saying this is one I haven't listened to a ton. What I've heard, I've liked. Not every song on the album I've liked, but this could be one of those ones where I have to listen to a few times more to really get the true meaning of it. And, it's good. It's, don't get me wrong, there's some really good songs on there. the ones that, the ones that I've heard the most are typically the ones that I like the most, and that's like Lux Eterna, which is their first single. If Darkness Had a Sun, that was another single. Um, oh shoot, what's the other one? I don't know. There's a couple other ones. Screaming Suicide is another one that was a single also, I believe. And so those three are probably, the ones I know the best and like the best as of now. I mean, I've listened to the whole album probably 5 times. I like some other songs, but I just can't give you a good review on the whole album. And, from what I've heard, it is again kind of like Death Magnetic and Hardwired. It's kind of similar to the old stuff. It's a kind of a little more heavy, getting away from the load reload kind of stuff that was more bluesy. So they're definitely going back to their roots, the way it seems. A lot more heavy guitars, riff heavy, and a lot of change up in their riffs and stuff like that throughout the songs. Like on their first few albums, they did that a lot. They'd play a song and there'd be 4 or 5 riffs in every song, and that used to piss me off because I'm a guitar player and I couldn't think of one. But so that's kind of my review on that as far as it goes, because I can't give you a full review because I can't remember all the songs because it's been a little bit since I've listened to them. But overall, if you're a Metallica fan, you will like it. So
yeah, and I'll have to back away a little bit from it because even though it's been out for a while, it's a 77-minute album. I haven't taken the time to invest in listening to the whole thing.
I'm sure you've heard the singles and stuff.
Lux Eterna, and maybe I've heard a couple of the others, just bits and pieces, but I probably listened to Lux Eterna 2 or 3 times all the way through.
Yep.
Just to kind of get a feel for it.
It's jamming. It's good.
But yeah, I can't speak any more on it yet.
Totally understand. And I will get to listening to it more. It's just I got more time on the road and stuff now, so it'll get thrown into the mix. And then later on down the line, maybe I can do a better review of that album. Right now, I'm going to go ahead and start with my rankings of Metallica albums, and I'm just doing the studio stuff. No S&M, no Lulu, anything like no live albums.
No Garage Days.
No Garage Days, even though I really enjoyed the Garage Days. They have a lot of good songs on them. But I'm just going to stick to the 11 albums that they have out there. And I'll go from 11 to 1. 11, no surpriser. It's the turd, Saint Anger.
Tell us how you really feel again.
Well, I mean, that album, it's kind of one of those things. I was thinking about this earlier today. I was like, if they would have recorded it like they could record, I mean, they had the equipment to make it sound good. I mean, their 1981 Kill 'Em All didn't sound bad. How come this one sounds so bad? So, I mean, they have the equipment to make it sound good, make it listenable. I mean, that's all I gotta say. In my opinion.
Flush the turd, move on.
Yep, flush the turd. We're gonna go to number 10. At number 10, it is Reload. These albums are okay, and I'll just tell you that number 9 is Load. So Load and Reload are right next to each other. And like I said earlier, these are kind of bluesy albums, a little stray off the path of what I knew Metallica as being. A little more bluesy, a little less thrash, shall we say, but still good albums. There's some really good songs on those. Number 8, we'll go with 72 Seasons, and the only reason it could get higher down the road, I just haven't listened to it enough. Then at number 7, I got Death Magnetic. Another good album, but it's really hard to break in the top 5 with Metallica because of the first 5 albums. So That's kind of why that is. Hardwired, I like that one just a little bit better than Death Magnetic. There's a few songs on there that just kind of put it over the top for me. So that's where the bottom ones rank. Now you got your 5 that everybody knows. That coming in at number 5, and this might surprise a few people, but I'm putting the Black Album there. It's probably one that I've listened to the most. And part of that being when it came out, everybody wanted to listen to it. So if I was cruising around and whatever, people wanted to hear that album. If you're out at a party, they wanted to hear that album. So, I mean, it's probably the one that most Metallica fans probably have heard the most, just because it was the big one that sent them over the edge of stardom. Number 4 will be And Justice for All. I like this album. Very good album. Very thrashy. Just all around great album. But I have to go number 3. We're going to go with Ride the Lightning. And 1, 2, and 3 could have been any which way. I think Ride would still be in third. But the top 2 for me was a toss-up. And it's Kill 'Em All and Master of Puppets. So they could be interchanged at 1 and 2 for me, because as a whole album, the Master of Puppets is probably a better written and better songs. But the Kill 'Em All is where I got introduced to Metallica, so I have a soft spot for that album, and I can't help it. So those are interchangeable at the moment. I put Master second and Kill 'Em All first, just because this is the first album I heard and first album that got me hooked into Metallica. It started the fire, so it deserves to be number 1, I think. But like I said, they could interchange either way. So that is my list. I know Chris is going to do, I think, a top 5 Metallica albums, because that's the ones he knows the best. So I'll let him go ahead with that.
Yeah, I know a few from the other, beyond my top 5, but I just feel like it's only fair for me to rate my top 5. And we have the same top 5, just in a slightly different order. And there's no surprise, the first 5 albums. And I think we both had 5 with the self-titled Black Album. It's great, don't get me wrong. So just because I got it down at 5 doesn't mean that it's bad.
Exactly.
It's just hard I can't put it any higher than that when I have the 4 before that. So, and 4 was tough for me, because I like this one a lot too, Ride the Lightning. It's I feel like it only has 8 songs on there. Is that right?
Yeah.
But whatever, they're all great. And then I have Chad's number 1 at 3 for me is Kill 'Em All. And sometimes I feel that one maybe should be 2, maybe should be 4. I know. It's weird for me. I love it. That's probably the second one that I got into, because when I get to my number 1, which is what got me into it, well, I'll bring that back up here in a second. Number 2 is Master of Puppets, which I think is almost everybody's number 1. Oddly, it wasn't Chad's number 1 and it wasn't my number 1, but I think Master of Puppets is probably the one that most Metallica fans would say is their best.
Correct. I think you're right. Yeah.
And number 1 for me is And Justice for All, which I think most Metallica fans would put that around 4 or 5. Oddly, to me, I feel like that's odd, because I think just overall, and there was some, Cliff Burton had just died, and they made this album with a new bass player, Jason Newsted. And I've heard a lot of things about, I didn't feel this way when I first listened to it back in 1989, that the bass was kind of missing from the album. I've heard I don't know that there's an actual release where they put it out, but I've heard there's guys that went and remixed this album and added the bass in a little heavier. But anyway, And Justice for All for me was where I really got into it. And I love every song on that. I think it's about a 65-minute album. The song One was, my introduction on MTV, or I can't remember where I first heard it, but it could have been MTV. Definitely And Justice for All is just my number one Metallica album. But then my next, to get into Metallica, I went and picked up, Kill 'Em All, Ride the Lightning, Master of Puppets, probably in that order. And that's the order they came out. So Kill 'Em All, even though I had it at 3, sometimes is 2, and sometimes it's 4, and some,
Yeah.
So
just
those
depends
are
on the mood sometimes too.
Black, Ride the Lightning, Kill 'Em All, Master of Puppets, and my number one's And Justice for All.
Well, it's funny. I noticed that the one that got you into Metallica is your number one. That's the same thing with me. The one that got me into the band is my number one. And I think that's for a reason. It's the first thing you heard by him and first thing that you went, holy cow, what is this? And, because it was visceral back in 84 or 85 when I first heard them. It was just like, holy cow, this is something completely different than hair metal. This is a completely different animal. But that is my band. That is Metallica. I think we're going to wrap it up for this episode. If you liked what you've seen, click the like button, subscribe, share with your friends, your neighbors, your enemies. I don't care. Just share it away. Chris, you want to say a few words before we
tie this up? I'll just pile on what Chad said. Like, subscribe. This episode maybe is a little bit longer than some of others, but we're talking about Metallica, and they have a huge catalog.
Their songs are long too. So
thanks for listening.
Yeah, thank you guys for listening. Tune in to the next one. Thank you so much for joining us today. We really hope you enjoyed our content. If you did, please like, subscribe, share, and tell your friends. We'd greatly appreciate it. Links to everything we discussed will be included in episode notes. Feel free to check those out as well. Until next time, stay golden, Pony Boy, and rock on.